Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So it's bright and early before the sun come up, and we're out here in the shop. Nice cool fall morning. I'm loving it. And we're out here going to work on this carburetor, and I'll explain why in this video. And we're just going to do I'm not going to call it a carb rebuild, because I'm not really technically rebuilding it. I'm just kind of going through it, but we'll go through it in this video. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy it. Alrighty, so let's get started. So let me explain why I'm doing this first off. So what happened was I was adjusting on this air flap, and I'm gonna turn the camera around and show you what I was doing. Alright, so this is upside down. So this air flap is adjusted by that spring down in there. That's what controls the tension of this air flap. To adjust it, you got this little set screw, lock screw, and then you turn that center flathead to add tension to the spring. Well, what happened was, if you look, this is all internal. That spring is under your floats. Whenever I was adjusting on it, this turns counterclockwise to tighten. So as I was turning, it was turning the lock screw too, and I allowed it to come all the way out, which released the tension on the spring, and the spring went pshoo, and it fell down in the bowl. So I had to take the carburetor apart to get the spring out of the bowl to put it back together, but we've got it. And since I had to take it apart anyway, I figured I'd go ahead and clean everything up and put some new gaskets in it, which we got a whole kit here. I did find some issues, so it was kind of a good thing that I took it apart. I'll show you what I found. Alright, so this is the phenolic resin body, and it's basically just a plastic. And in the 70s, this was kind of, big technology, especially for carburetors. But once I took this apart, I noticed this right here, and it's probably gonna be hard to get on camera, but right here there's a huge chunk from like right here to right here of the resin, the plastic missing. It's just chipped away. Right there's a pretty good angle, you can see it. And if you look at it compared to this side, I'll put a straight edge on it. And there's also a chunk missing right here, which I don't know would hurt anything, but I don't know. But if you look right here, go from flat edge to flat edge, there's a huge gap of where that chunk is missing. So there's no way that gasket was sealing. That's a major vacuum leak, which would explain the lean condition in the secondaries, why I was getting so much bog. And there's another chip right here, which I'm not real concerned about because it's just around the bolt hole, and I don't think it would hurt anything. And there's another one right here. So what I decided to do, this is a complete accident find. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this one. And I have probably 5 or 6 of these carburetors that I bought as cores and spares, and I've got a few that are pretty decent rebuildable condition. I got a few that's primarily for parts. So what I did was I went through and got one for parts that I had, and took it apart, and I cleaned it up, and I'm gonna use the body off of it, and I'll show you I've already got it cleaned up. I've done all the cleaning off camera. I didn't want to spend an hour on a video cleaning. So here's the replacement body. You can see it's already ready. It's cleaned up, and it is chipped and crack free. I've already got the jets put in. I did go down one size in jets where it was so rich. I may end up regretting that and have to take it back apart. But these were 98s and those are 96s. So I did go down a little bit. It's not even enough to see with your eyes, but they are different. But we're going to go through this carburetor, and I'm going to this video is going to be about putting it back together. All right, so we're going to go over the Thermoquads just a little bit. If you already know about them, then you're going to already know what I'm talking about. If you've never fooled with them, you don't know anything about them, I'm just going to give you like a brief lesson on them. So with the Thermoquads, they started around 1971 with the 340. It was the first motor they went on. There are two different styles, factory styles, and then there was a third 9800 series that was like an aftermarket Thermoquad. We won't go too far into that. So with the we're just going to talk about the factory ones. So with the factory Thermoquads, you had two different primary size bores. You had a large bore, which was 1.5 inches, and a small, which was 1 3/8 inches. Both of the secondaries are the same size. They're both 2 1/4. There's a bunch of different varieties as far as like through the years they added smogs and vents and different vacuum ports, and we're not going to get into that either. There's a ton of information online. You can if you have one, you can look up your number and see which one you have and kind of figure out. We will talk a little bit about the ports as far as your ported vacuum or your manifold vacuum, but we'll talk about that a little bit later when we start talking about the base plate. Right now we're talking about the body. So now we know there's two different primary sizes. I'm going to do something a little bit different with this build. I've kind of researched it a little bit, and I haven't seen where that it's been done. It's either going to be a epic idea or it's going to be a epic fail. Either way, I'm going to do it, and we're going to see how it works. So what I've done here, like I said, I've got 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 different carburetors, and I'm looking for one that is like the non-emissions body, and I don't have any in the large bore. The only I have one large bore, and it is over here. And I'm actually wanting to rebuild this one. This is going to be one that I'm wanting to build and use, so I'm not going to part it out for this one. And I got a box over there full of them. So I actually got a 9800 aftermarket 9800 whole carburetor, and it was originally I was going to rebuild it and do it, but I don't think I'm going to anymore, so I'm actually going to use the body out of it. But here's the kicker. So the 9800 is a small primary. My base plate is a large primary. I can't find anything where anybody has ever done it before. I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure somebody's done it intentionally or not, but I can't find any documentation on how it did or how it ran. So without tearing my good carburetor apart and stealing the body off of it, well, what I think's good, it might be broke too, who knows, I haven't tore it apart yet. I'm going to use this this small bore. The primary butterflies open, everything clears, nothing rubs, nothing hits. I mean, dimensionally speaking, it will work. I don't know about air and fuel delivery, how it's going to affect it. I'm thinking it should lean the primaries out some, which needs to be done anyway because I'm on the rich side. But I want to show you the difference between the large and the small. Okay, so this is a large one, and I've got this set up to where it, at the smallest point, this is the small. And you can see it's quite a bit different. It's probably 1/4 inch or so. These holes here, which this is the top, that's the bottom. The bottom here is just a little bit smaller, but the butterfly is still clear, and I'll show you that in just a few seconds. These, just a little breakdown on what does what. If you've never fooled with Thermoquads before, these are your fuel wells, and these are your jets. These fuel wells fill full of fuel, and your jets are right here, and the metering rods will go in the jet, and it sucks the fuel. Well, okay, so this is the base. These are your primaries here. These are your secondaries back here. These little holes here is for your idle enrichment. That's where on this side, flip it around. Right here, these holes here is where your idle enrichment screws go in. My camera is not focusing. Right there. And then that is what richens up the idle. That's what we adjusted in the previous video. So let me get the camera set up on the tripod so I can use both hands, and I'll show you the difference between these two bases on the body between the large and small. All right, so here's the base. We'll start with the large body. So here's your little recesses for the fuel rails. So that kind of indicates where this goes. And it will just slide on here like that. All right, so if you look, when you open up the primaries, you can see the little venturis in there. Here's from the top side. All right, so this is the large. This is the one that was on it. All right, now this is the small one. And you can see it still opens all the way up, but you can really see the difference, how much that hole is restricted versus the large one. It's quite a bit different. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to try this large one or the small one out, and I think that it's going to build a little bit more velocity, but it is going to limit the amount, or not really, it's going to lower the amount of fuel that's really getting in there, which may be a good thing. It may not. We'll just have to try it and see. If we put it all together, it runs like crap, I'll take it back off, and I'll find a different body. I thought about even trying to repair this one, maybe take some JB weld and build it up, and it's a flat surface, just sand it. I don't know. I'm not going to throw this one out yet. I'm just hold on to it just in case. But we'll try this one for now. I may end up regretting the jet change because I'm already going to be leaning it out because of the smaller venturis. So I may have leaned it out too much, but it's just part of the game. Just research and development, see what works and what doesn't. But when we're talking about carb rebuilds, the most important thing is clean, and pay attention to what goes where. It's so many, like, just little small parts, and it's so easy to forget where you took something out at. Fortunately, I have a couple spares, so I can kind of cross-reference. Okay, so this linkage goes here or whatever. Uh, with the body here, and these ports, I can't really see it on camera because yeah, you can kind of see right there the little hole, but there's an O-ring that goes in there. Make sure you don't forget to put that back in. But we'll go ahead and oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the base. Okay, so when we're talking about ported vacuum and manifold vacuum, there's kind of a mysterious, you can't figure out what goes where. You don't know, some people don't know the difference. I'm gonna explain it real quick. So ported vacuum will be anything above the butterflies. So if the vacuum is coming before the butterflies, that's ported. Anything after is manifold. So when you're obviously if you got a port on your intake manifold, that's going to be manifold vacuum. It's after the butterflies into the engine. If you're looking at the top of the engine, the air cleaner working your way down, that's below the butterflies. So that's manifold vacuum. So on this one, we've only got two ports to choose from. This is your PCV, so technically three, but I'm not counting that one. I got one here and one here. For me, the easiest way to determine what's ported and what's not is with a vacuum gauge, with the engine running. So have the engine running, plug your vacuum into gauge into it. If you have air pressure or vacuum suction at idle, it is going to be manifold vacuum. If you have none at idle and you give it some gas without the engine being under load, RPMs come up, and then you start getting your vacuum, that's going to be ported. So looking at this base, this is the top, this is the bottom, this is the intake side, this is the body side. So we look at this port here. I like to use like a cleaner or one of these sticks or one of the little jet cleaner rods. One of these, doesn't really matter as long as it's small enough to get in the hole. So we're gonna run this down here and we're gonna see where it goes. And I'm not gonna be able to get this on camera probably, but there's a hole right there, and that is the vacuum. That's where this one goes. So looking at the top of the base here, this vacuum is above the butterflies, so this is ported vacuum. This one back here, if you follow it, we're going to use the straw because I think it'll be a little bit easier to see. It's right, the hole comes out right there. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but it comes out right there. And this is the bottom side, manifold side of the carburetor. This is the base that goes to the intake manifold. So this is going to be manifold vacuum because it is after the below the butterflies. I hope that makes sense. Ported vacuum is above the butterflies. Manifold is below. That's the easiest way to remember it. All right, so I've already cleaned all this off really good. Just go through and clean. That's going to be the biggest thing with carburetors. Make sure they're spotless. I've used these brushes. I got some wire brushes. I've cleaned everything off. Like I said, I've done it off camera. I'm not going to spend hours, and it literally takes hours to clean one, or at least it does for me. They make like little dips that you can put these in. I don't think they're as good as they used to be. I haven't used one in a long time, but if nowadays I think the best thing is ultrasonic cleaners, and I don't have one. I just used a wire brush. If you got one extremely dirty like that one I showed you over there, you're going to have to get something heavier. You're going to have to dip it and clean it really good. But this one just came off the car. It was a fairly fresh rebuild, so it really wasn't that bad. I did go through and clean all the ports out. I cleaned all the butterflies out, and I cleaned the base real good. So we're ready to get started on putting this thing back together. So we're going to lay it out like this, and I'm going to try to get the camera set up to where you can see overhead, and we're just going to start putting this thing back together. I do want to go over the air horn here, and there's a few things on it that we got to take care of too. We'll do that before we start the assembly. So with this, we have to set our floats height. Anytime you take a carburetor apart, go ahead and check them. That's going to be, it's going to be one of the biggest issue causers is out of adjustment floats. These Thermoquads in particular are 13/16. The kits that you buy, or at least the one I bought, comes with a little measuring tool. And it's just a little paper ruler, and it works if you don't have nothing else. But I'm using this little measuring tool here, and it comes with a little slider, so you can really set your I got it on backwards. There we go. You can really see your float level. So we'll do that first, and I'll show you how to set it. All right, so we're going to 30 seconds. So this is actually a 64th. I'm not sure if I'm getting this on camera or not, but 30 seconds is going to be right under an inch. About right there. So we want to go from the highest point of the float, set this flat on the base of the carburetor, and check that float. That one's good. And then this one, you see the float. That one's good too. So if we need to change these on Thermoquads, if it's too high or too low, you want to bend it on this tab right here on the float. You don't want to bend it down here where the needle touches. You want to bend it up here. I try to bend it like right here in the center. And but that's how you adjust your floats. You just measure them. It's 30 seconds. So just get your height and bend it till it's right. It's not complicated at all. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to start with the base and the gaskets. These kits come with multiple gaskets for different models. Just match them up with the best one you got. So I'm going to put it on the base or the body first, like this. Make sure any holes that are in the body are free, and just kind of go through all the gaskets and make sure that everything's lined up, because there are a few differences. All right, so we're just gonna turn this over. It might be easier to put the base. Well, no, let's do it like this. It'd help if I do it right. I have it upside down. Alright. Like so. Alright, so now we got to put those little O-rings in I was telling you about. Alright, so here's our O-rings. We're just going to drop them in there. And if they don't fall in place, I'm just going to use a pick and center them up. Like so. Now we're ready. We're ready for the air horn. This is a little bit tricky with these. So you want to unplug your power valve, accelerator pump. Well, maybe. Because it runs through the gasket. So we're looking at the gasket like this, make sure everything lines up. And you can see it doesn't have the cutout for the hose, so it has to go on the other side of the gasket. So what we're going to do is just going to take the hose completely off, like so. Slide our gasket over the accelerator pump, and be careful. Let me slide this body out of the way. Just be really careful when you're putting this gasket on not to bend your floats. And we probably will check them again one more time before we put it on the base. You want to make sure those floats there we go. You want to make sure those floats move freely and don't get hung up on the gasket, because that will cause issues later on. And now we can put our accelerator pump hose back on. All right, like that right there. So now we can set this back on the base. And just double check and make sure everything's lined up and everything looks right. Just gonna slide it on nice and easy. Make sure we don't bend nothing. Make sure all of our we do need to go ahead and put this linkage back on over here, because it doesn't go on once the body's together. So this linkage over here is for your fast throttle, and the point needs to be facing away from the carburetor. All right, like that. So it hooks in. You kind of got to manipulate it a little bit to get it lined up. Okay, so we got this put together. I'm going to show you a better view of this linkage. That linkage for the fast idle goes through here, and it points out, and then it goes on the slot, and this bottom points in. The curve goes in and around toward the base of the carb. So now that we kind of got it basically together, I'm going to throw a couple of screws in it just to hold it together so it don't fall apart when I move it around. That now's a good time to make sure that all your gaskets are lined up while you're putting the bolts in. If they don't go in, kind of like this one's doing, you know your gasket's probably not lined up. That one's good. So we need to work on this side. All right, so now that we got one screw in, I'm gonna try to get these others lined up. I'm just gonna put a couple in it. There we go. Now we're not going to torque it down. We're just going to get it tight enough to hold the gasket and everything in place. We're going to do probably do one on each corner here. Okay, that should hold it. That's 4. Now we're going to go through and make sure that everything's closed and in place and there's no gaps. All right, looks good. So now we got to, let's go ahead and put the accelerator pump back in. I got the bracket and the linkage right here. So this has a little S linkage on it. The way this goes on is the top is going to be pointing out. Like that. I don't know if you can see that. But the S is pointing to the outside of the carb. And then your bracket slides on like that. And it's held in place with this little screw. Make sure it works freely. Alright, so now you want to, when you're taking these apart, make sure you pay attention to which hole it was in. Mine was in the top one. And the bottom is going to face out. The curve is going to face in. And it's going to go like that. And you're going to have to decompress it to get it back in the hole. Like so. Don't take a lot of pressure. And it's held on by one of these little C-clips. Alright, just like it right there. It's on. Alright, so now we're just going to work our linkage and make sure everything works freely, and it does. Alright, so moving on. Alright, so the next linkage we're going to work on goes from the vacuum for the secondaries to the actual air flap. And it is over here on this side. And it goes in this little slot. It's got a washer on it. And it's going to go in there. Let's see, I think the elbow goes down. Yeah, the little elbow. So the elbow is going to go down. And then the top part is going to face out. So it's going to go in there like that right there. Alright, so I got the bottom and the top end. We're going to probably put the C-clip on the bottom first just to hold it in place, and then we can get the top. Seems like no matter where I'm at, I'm in the way of the camera. Okay. So like that. Alright, so now the next thing we need to put in is... Oh, I forgot something. So, we're going to start over. I forgot our baffle that goes in the secondaries. So, I'll take this back apart, we'll put the baffle in, and then I'll do that off camera to just kind of keep it short. I'll be right back. Alright, so, got this back apart. We forgot this baffle. It slides in right here. It shows how easy it is to forget something and why you always want to keep your parts organized. So, slide it back in. Okay, so now that we got our mistake fixed, got everything hooked back up, we're going to put in the metering rods next. So to do that, we need to take out these two small screws. And be careful with these, they break. Ask me how I know. So we're going to take these out. Which you may be able to squeeze them in there with the plates on, but I like to take them off. I don't think I've ever tried to put them in with the plates on, but it might be possible, I don't know. Alright, so this is your metering rod. And this is your metering rod spring. So we're going to slide our spring on. We're gonna slide our metering rods on. It might be easier just to, we'll just drop the spring down in there. That's gonna be a lot to hold. All right, so the rods are gonna face in like that right there, and then it's gonna slide straight in. It's kind of finicky to get them in there straight. You just got to make sure that the metering rods seat down into the needles or the jets, like so. Put our little top cover back on. And be careful with this bolt too, it'll break also. Work it up and down, make sure it works freely and it doesn't bind. Alright, it's time to put our plates back on. Alright, so with these hard to reach screws, it's very small and it's hard to get in there. You can see I'm kind of struggling with it. This little tool right here works wonders. So it just holds a flathead screw. Like so. And then once you get it started, so it's just a little spring-loaded tip. It's once you just turn this tip, and it's got like a little lock, and put your flathead on here, and then once you release it, I don't know if you can see that little center spring-loaded, and it holds tension on the flathead. That thing works wonders. And the other side is magnetic, so you can if you drop one, you can pick it up. That's a pretty cool little tool. I don't even know where I got that at. It's a Craftsman E410-24. I don't know if they still make those or not, but that's a pretty cool little tool for stuff like that. Alright, so now we got the top plate back on. We need to put our choke lever back on. And it goes right here on this, on the shaft, the fast idle shaft right here. Alright, so the bracket's held on by 5/32 hex head. It's very small. And you just, same as before, want to just loop your end around. Just loop your end around like that. Like so. And then you put your little screw back in it. Alrighty, so everything should be done. We got everything put back together. There's a lot more parts and components of this that I didn't take off, so I'm not covering those, but we're going to put the 10 bolts back in it. Don't forget the 2 inside of the on the other side of the choke tube here. So if you're taking one of these apart, there's 8 bolts on the outside and there's 2 inside here in the primary, so don't forget those. Alright, so now we got all 10 bolts back in it. We're going to tighten these down just like you would a lug nut. We're going to go crisscross like that. Alright, so I went around it twice. Alright, I think we're ready to put it back on the car. Alright, everything seems to be moving freely and everything looks nice and tight. The last thing we need to do is put our mixer screws back in. And we're going to start with our baseline setting again that we done in a few videos ago. So I'm just going to screw these all the way in. Alright, that's all the way in. So let's get it put back on the car real quick. Alright, so we got everything put back on the car. Everything set back up. Double checked all my linkages. All the functions seem to be working. Got the throttle cable and everything hooked back up. Probably going to take a couple cranks to get it going because there's no fuel in the carburetor, so I'm going to have to fill the bowls up. But I'm going to crank it over and we're going to get it running again. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. We'll get it running in another video. This video is just about putting the car back together. So we'll get it running in another video. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was educational. If you got any questions that I didn't cover, leave me a comment. I'll see you next time.